I'm Katie Bain. I am the Director of Electronic Coverage at Billboard Magazine, and I am here today to talk about a topic that I think is super interesting and really inspiring, and it sounds very innovative. It's about Huntsville's quest to become a music city, Huntsville, Alabama. And joining us, we have the mayor of Huntsville, Tommy Battle. We have Celese Sanders, and we have Shain Shapiro. Thanks for joining us today, guys, to tell us what you guys are doing down there.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I think let's start, Celeste, just if we could go around and tell us who you guys are and sort of how what you do connects to the initiative that we're going to be talking about.
Sure. So my name is Celese Sanders. I am the founder and executive director of Encore Opera Huntsville. And I started it and just jumped right into the music scene when I moved here. And as part of my work with the opera company, I was invited to be part of the music advisory board, which I'll let the mayor and Shain talk a little bit about how that got started. And so I serve, I serve in the executive committee of the Huntsville Music Board.
And Shain, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm not from Huntsville. I'm not even American. I'm Canadian, and I live in the UK. To make it even more complicated. But no, I run a company called Sound Diplomacy, and we work with cities all over the world on music policy and strategy. I've done a lot of work in London over many years, and through a random set of events, actually, I was introduced to someone who was hired by a property developer in Huntsville to build a music program in an emerging part of the city, in a new development. And they then introduced me to the mayor and the mayor's team. And the idea came about really looking at how music impacts the wider economic development and workforce development and tourism and overarching strategy of the city. So we were lucky enough to be hired to do an assessment of the city's music ecosystem under the mayor's guidance and Celeste and lots of other people. And that's led to the creation of the Huntsville Music Board and lots of other things. But I think that the city really has taken music, it's late for me, as a key industry. And, Mayor Talk Huntsville is incredibly forward thinking in terms of how it's attracted jobs. And I think that now it's time for music to play an active role in that, and that's how it all started.
Amazing. And Mayor Battle, tell us a little bit about yourself and just how this initiative first came to life.
I've been mayor here for 12 years, and over the 12 years, we have developed an economic, very good economic engine for the city of Huntsville. We've developed some 30,000 jobs, $4 billion worth of investment in our community. And, as we do that, we're able to grow because of the quality of life that we have. And music is part of our quality of life. The arts are part of our quality of life. Running trails, greenways, disc golf, sand volleyball are all parts of the quality of life of what we have in our community. But for a long time, we have been kind of a sister city to Muscle Shoals, who has a little bit of background in music, to Nashville, which is about the same distance as Muscle Shoals from us, who has a good background in music. And we've watched these communities over the years and seen what they've been able to do, growing economically off of music and what the music industry has brought to them. And we look at a community that we compete with quite often when we're competing for projects, Austin, Texas, and we see what they've done with South by Southwest. And so in looking across looking across the nation, we recognize that music is has the potential of bringing in business, to pumping your economy, to bringing people to your community, people who are some of the best and brightest. And if you can have the best and brightest come in, they're job multipliers. And so we look at music as part of how we're going to get our economy moving forward. The idea of a music board came on, and we did a music audit. Shain's firm, Sound Diplomacy, did a music audit for our city, and we looked at what what was out there, what our assets were, what our liabilities were, what we needed to improve upon, and started working on a game plan that would bring us into very much into into the music century. And as we've done that, we've been able to see some growth in our community. We've also been able to see how arts and music and all the other amenities that you have, how that helps you grow and continue to grow and prosper. So the bottom line of it is that it makes dollars and cents, and parts of it that makes sense is that it grows your economy, it grows your job base, it grows your intellectual capacity, and when you put all that together, it makes for a growing economy.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. I'm wondering, so when you decide to launch an initiative like this, you mentioned the board. Where does one start? Because it's a huge project, and it seems like it has a lot of tangents to it. So when you sit down, what is that first step?
Sure. The first step was to talk about a music board and what we were going to do with the music board, what some of the focus was, and the focus was to focus in on the offerings that Huntsville has as a music community, and also to grow those assets. We opened it up for nominations, or we opened it up for applications for people who who wanted to be involved. And as we did that, I mean, we had thousands of applications come in. We were pleasantly surprised at how many people really wanted to be a part of this process. Everybody from my brother-in-law, who used to play in a band when he was in high school and now is an orthopedic surgeon, all the way through the group to Celese, who lives in that market right now. And so we broke it down and got a small core group together who could work together as part of our music commission for the city of Huntsville. And it's been really interesting sitting in and listening into some of the conversations about how we establish this, how we work with different groups, how we work with the venues that are out there. We've got right now on our capital plan, we're looking at doing an amphitheater that will be in the future in Huntsville. But how does that fit into our music scene, and how do we make sure that we have everything that we need, the precursors to that? And as we build our music scene, what baby steps do we have to take so we build those foundation blocks that we can build upon to move really forward in this effort? And it's been fascinating listening to the professionals in the business, the people who live in it day by day, but also have a real heart for it, and they're volunteering their time, serving the community, but building up a music community for us.
Got it. Okay. And I'm wondering, and Shain, maybe you can help illuminate here. And the Muscle Shoals, Nashville, Austin, why, or to what extent was music chosen as sort of the thing, the economic driver, versus other things that could have accomplished that task? Why music?
Well, Muscle Shoals was, there's a lot of coincidence. I think that one of the things, Huntsville and Muscle Shoals, as an outsider, because I'm not from there, share some uniqueness. One is Huntsville is unique for space and where, because that's where the space program is based. And Muscle Shoals is obviously famous for the studios fame and Muscle Shoals, but those innovations happened around the same time, right? The Van Braun in Huntsville and Rick Hall in Muscle Shoals. And I think the region has always been innovative like that. But what we looked at, our job was, as the mayor says, to provide a bit of a roadmap. And music is never taken deliberately and intentionally like an economy or an amenity. So really thinking about how it functions as an ecosystem, from education through to regulation, through to supporting artists, things like zoning, a lot of boring stuff, admittedly, that does impact music. And the objective of the audit was to try to provide as much data as we could possibly provide that would define and defend a deliberate and intentional use of music as a city building tool. And I remember we put a 265-page report on the mayor's desk. And the reason we did that was we wanted to make sure that music was being treated like any other industry. we didn't have that fight in Huntsville. Everyone got it. In some other cities that we work, it's not the case, just to be frank. So, and the last thing is any decision that's made in a city has to be made by those who live in the city, or it's not going to work. I think we're seeing that more and more being important now. And so the music board, the objective was, when we were dreaming it up, one is I did one in London, and it didn't work. So I've learned from my mistakes. There's a different structure now in London, probably a better one. And we have done it in a few other places, but in Huntsville, we want to make sure it was diverse and equitable, but not just obviously racially and socially, but also by genre. So, you know, we have Celese from opera, but we also have a hip hop producer, and we have the public radio head lead. And the idea was, you know, music means all things to all people. So we have to really try to understand the widest sense of what music means to a community. And that's not just the commercial music industry, that's all sorts of other things, right? So I think this kind of holistic ecosystem approach to the research is what we have tried to do in terms of providing guidance for the music board. And the one thing I'm quite happy about is it went so well that they kicked me out of it. So I'm not really involved anymore. So, and I'll take that as the best compliment, you know, that I've ever had.
Sounds good.
One of the most interesting things that happened was that we had public meetings that we just put out to the public, said, come give us your ideas on music and everything. And Shain held those. And I think we had 4 or 5 of them. And, you know, the first one we expected to have, you know, 30, 40 people. And we had over 200 people there who wanted to talk about music and the importance of music to our community. And they wanted to talk about the value of music to our community. And so we had each one of those meetings, you know, we would go into a place and there'd be standing room only in there because there was an undercurrent of a group, a big support group that was out there. And I think that's where Shain was so smart as he put this together, because it's not done by anybody. It can't be done by an expert from London, England, who comes in and says, you need to do this, this, and this. He was able to take what our community fed him and what the ideas were that came out of this community and craft them into something that was usable. And we came out with the music commission out of it.
Okay. Celeste, I wonder how important is sort of the pre-existing music community? Obviously, you're trying to draw people to Huntsville, but how much do you have to rely on the people in the creative community that's already there?
Oh my goodness, the creative community that is here is just unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen such a huge variety of people and such a huge amount of people who are passionate. Like they mentioned, this is the Rocket City, and that's really what we're known for. And I came into it expecting that there wasn't going to be much music here, and I was proven very wrong. And it's been amazing to see the amount of people involved in every way of, you know, if they're venues or performers or managers. There is so much here, and not only that, but people are passionate about it. So we really depend on those people, and we meet with them as often as we can. We meet with the venue managers to say, you know, how can we assist you, and what are you struggling with, and how can we connect these people? And I think one of our big challenges and goals at this point is to really connect all of those different aspects of it, connecting the venues with the managers, with the performers, so that they're a central goal, central unity that maybe we were missing a little bit before. And so we couldn't do that without the cooperation and the passion that all of these people already have.
Sure. And then, so, I mean, you know, you create the board, you make the decision that you're going to do this. The board is created. What do you then do pragmatically? Do you go to venue owners? Do you go to managers? Like, what is sort of the on the ground action that kind of launches this thing into being, you know, an actual functioning thing?
Well, thankfully, Shain was fantastic enough to kind of give us a good roadmap. The audit that they put together was just phenomenal, and they really laid out action items and prioritized them for us, and that was fantastic. So we had a really great groundwork for that, so where we could say, okay, here's what we want to accomplish. And of course, everybody on the board had different things that were priorities to them. And we really had to sit down together and say, okay, which direction are we going to go? We created some committees to really help guide the direction a little more specifically. So we have a policy committee, a PR and communications, an education, or events and outreach, and an education. Yeah. So we've got those 4 committees, and each committee is kind of taking a specific direct approach to the certain goals that we've laid out. So that has really, really helped us. That audit really made all the difference in helping us know where to start, boots to the ground, getting the work done.
Yeah, I think, to be frank, you know, one of the literal things that was done at the beginning was COVID related. So you know, when when we got the board up and running, it was what, like end of January, early February, or something like that.
Yeah, so we met a couple of times, and we didn't even have an official board meeting. We had a couple of get to know you meetings. COVID hit, and we had our first meeting in April, and we were like, okay, well, everything's different now. So we've really had to, very quickly come together and figure out some plans on what we were going to do. So Sound Diplomacy has been awesome. They have somebody named Kate here who really works with us. And together, Sound Diplomacy has helped us put together education for performers with COVID, with reopening, with safe performing procedures, things like that. So we not only jumped in with a very good game plan from the audit, but we also jumped in with extra bonus work to get to do with COVID.
It's not, I appreciate it, but it's not about, it's just about providing as much research as possible so decisions can be made in an educated way. So the board has done venue reopening guides, COVID relief information guides. There's far more communication now between local entities to support artists, things like that have been led.
Sure. Yeah, Mayor, I mean, obviously given COVID and no one could have planned for it, but in terms of the music community and where you guys are at now, to what extent is the community open? Is it thriving? And are you still able to sort of execute the goals of the initiative during this time?
Yeah, the great thing is that the Music Commission put together some distance learning type programs that we could still continue on part of the mission that we needed to be on. The restaurants here are running about 50% capacity. They quit selling alcohol at 11 o'clock at night just to keep down the COVID cases. We did very well in the early stages of this pandemic, and we did very well through probably June 1st, and then June 1st we kind of let up, and we opened up, and we probably opened up too quick. We've had some spikes since then, and now we've flattened the curve and come back on the downside. But it has been tough for the hospitality industry, and it's been tough for the venues, because you aren't allowed to do venues. So then you have to do venues via the internet, venues via distance, and figure out how to live in this new normal, because it will be a new normal for a good while. And that's been the great thing about the Music Commission. They've taken on some of that, how to deal with your music industry during COVID-19, and it's not an easy thing. And so Celeste and the whole crew have done a great job of just trying to reach out to everybody. One day when we get back to normal, don't know when that day is going to be, we will be way ahead of the game of where we were when they first met back in April. And they met at a local brewery back in April when we first met, and met over beers and got to know each other. But they've made progress all during this time. So COVID-19 hadn't set back the mission of what we want to do with the Music Commission, but it has set back our whole community. But when we come out of it, we're going to probably come out with a pretty good plan about how to move forward.
Sure. I think one of the things that's interesting about COVID is that with so many people working from home, there's this realization that you don't necessarily have to be in New York or Los Angeles or, Seattle or even Nashville to sort of do your job in the music industry. Do you think that given that sort of widespread realization, that could actually potentially boost what you're doing and draw people to Huntsville and places like it?
Yeah, and I think portions of what we're going to do is we're going to learn the technology of how to do distance concerts, have people at concerts who actually go to the concerts and enjoy the concerts, but then how to do distance concerts, how to do distance learning when you talk about the education piece and teaching young people in schools how we can help as a community of experts in the music industry. And it's not definitely not me, but it's our commission, and how they can educate the young people on that, how to pass information along to let everybody know what is going on, where it's going on, what the don't miss things are. Some of those things are already coming out of the music commission, and they're putting them together in such a manner that when we get on the other side of this, we'll be much further ahead than where we were when we started off, and we'll be starting to pull together a community of that respects the music and the arts. I was listening to Celeste talking, and it was interesting talking about how our community, people come to it not expecting a lot of arts because we are a science, technology, engineering community. But I think it's the engineering and the creativity that you have to do when you're doing engineering and you're making new things, such as a rocket that takes man to the moon and brings you back, and do things like that. When you do those kind of things and you make something, it makes for creativity, and that creativity has to have an outlet. And you may work 8 hours a day as an engineer, but at the end of that day, your creativity, you want to go out and do something else. And we have a lot of people who work their full-time jobs so that they can enjoy their passion, which is music in our community.
Sure. And let's talk about the different ways that music plays out in the community. Obviously, there's the opera, there's venues. Like, what else is there that people can come, not only, of course, as attendees, but come and be employed? What kind of infrastructure do you have in that way? Yeah.
Celeste, this is yours. This is right in your sweet spot.
Oh my goodness, it's been amazing. I'm very much a classical performer, and that was kind of the world I would just, it was a very small world, and being on this board with some of the other people who are hip hop managers and singers and all of these different genres, I've learned so much about what's out here and the different roles and different jobs that there are. I guess I didn't ever realize some of the things that were included. And there are a lot of music jobs here, and there's potential to bring even more, which is really exciting, because as much growth as is possible with the city backing music here, I feel like we have just won the lottery in the music world to have a city, the city government backing something that we are so passionate about and that brings such a higher quality of life. And with that, I feel like there is so much potential for job growth in the industry, both for managers and performers and venues. And oh my goodness, all of the people that it takes, the technicians, the lights, the microphones, there's so many jobs involved in a music industry. And with the potential for growth we have here, we could bring in a lot more. Huntsville is just the best kept secret. I feel so blessed to be here. I didn't know how amazing this place was till we came here, and now I never want to leave.
I mean, tell me. Go ahead.
I think it's a basic question. First off, of affordability and geography. First off, what makes a place? What adds to one's quality of life? It's access and affordability. Huntsville geographically is super well connected, especially when regional is going to be the new normal in terms of touring, at least for the time being. As we say, a local may be your only live music. When you're an hour and 20 minutes from Nashville, less than an hour from Muscle Shoals, and the whole southeastern touring market. That's one. Huntsville's and to answer your question in terms of why I believe mid-sized cities are where the growth of the music sector is going to be, mainly because of affordability and access. A lot of the mid-sized cities are hub cities in between areas, especially in the middle of the country. And I believe Huntsville is, these cities are big enough to offer anything that a major city, not mostly everything that a major city offers, but small enough that they're accessible and affordable. And I think that, when I was going in, I remember when I met Mayor Battle for the first time, and I was scared. And and I went in, and in my head, my pitch was just purely about music shouldn't be seen any differently to anything else. Music is a way to make the community better, just as investing in education or investing in renewable energy or investing in another type of sector. But music never gets thought of in that way. And the thing is music is the ultimate value add, right? Just because one artist does well somewhere, it doesn't mean another artist is going to do worse because that artist does well. Music does not, it doesn't work that way. So, it's looking at these small and mid-sized cities, which in some ways, this is where some of the most, the great music happened in the 80s and early 90s, the Athens, Georgias, or the Gainesvilles. I know there are universities there as well, but I think it's having that access, affordability, and we always say it's like the one thing that often I live in London, right? One of the most expensive cities in the world. And the one thing that we can't afford to do is fail. Failure is too expensive, right? And the music industry to me, is just an exercise in constant failure. Creating a song is just an exercise in failing upwards until you create something amazing. And I kind of think coming up with a music strategy, it's the same thing. We're just trying to test things and look at music's role. And Huntsville is a place that you can fail to succeed rather than fail and not be able to eat. And living in London, so all these, I got so excited when I saw a city that genuinely cared. We were freaking out when the interest, when all these people showed up in the first meeting that I went to, I think there was like 600 people there. It was, and constant grilling in the press. That's another thing. We constantly got wrote up, like the local media wrote up everything that we did and kept us to account in terms of our time, in terms of what we were doing, because we were being contracted by the city. It's just that level of interest that I guess Celeste says. It was just, and we don't get that in every city that we work in. I wish I did. That's what gets me so excited about Huntsville, but also about the idea of Huntsville, and that the idea is transferable, but its home is been incubated in Huntsville.
I'm curious, is one of the goals sort of to be a magnet for people? You'd mentioned affordability, for people who cannot or don't want to anymore pay rent in Los Angeles or New York or San Francisco. Like, are you actively trying to draw people from those, major metropolitan cities?
Nashville.
We're already doing that. Yeah, we're already today drawing people from San Francisco, Los Angeles, Washington, Seattle area, East Coast, West Coast. We're already drawing them to because number one, we're more affordable. You can come here, and the house that you buy here for $200,000 is a decent sized house. So the house that you wish that you could buy in those places for $200,000 is not much house. Your cost of living here is less, and you find some of the same amenities that you find there. Part of our music commission challenge was to make sure that we had all the genres of all the different styles of music in there. Some of them, if you wanted the mayor's style of music, you'd end up with a very narrow band of people sitting there. But we wanted to make sure that we had the classical covered, that we had the hip hop covered, that we had all the different genres of music out there that we could do it, because as we attract those people from San Francisco and from Seattle and from the East Coast, from the Washington and Baltimore area and Boston area, they're not all going to be somebody who likes classical music, or they're not all going to be somebody who likes the oldie goldies, or they're going to be people from a whole lot of different areas and different who have different likes and wants, and we want to be very diversified in our offering that we have out there. So that's been one of the challenges of the Music Commission, because they are so diverse. How do you come together as one big diverse group? And Celeste and the entire group have done a very good job of making sure that we promote music as a whole, and we don't leave out one section of it.
Celeste, I would love to know more about the prevailing genres. What genres have a particular footing there, and then are there any that you're seeing emerging in the area?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good question. There is, I feel like there's a very strong standing of every kind of genre, actually. Maybe not jazz as much. There's a little bit of that here, but I do see a very good solid amount of every other kind, I believe. And I think one of the models that our board has said is that although we each have different interests, we all have different groups that we perform with, or different groups that we support more. We have said that what we do for one group, we do for all. So whatever it is, if we advertise one specific type of genre, we do it the same for everybody. And I feel like that unity that we've had from the beginning, once we established that, you know what, we are going to support everybody the same, that's really helped us to continue to equalize how we treat everybody and all of the different groups that are there. So, I mean, there's definitely some we're learning about that maybe I didn't know about. I've gotten to go to concerts that I didn't even know existed when I first moved here. And oh my goodness, there is so much talent here. I just didn't know. And I feel like this music initiative has, although the music was here before, it has brought attention to some of the ones that maybe haven't been recognized before. And there's so much talent in this town. It's amazing.
We discovered a number of things in the study. So in the study, we did a breakdown of the genres in which the artists reported themselves to be, right? That's pretty easy. And we also did a breakdown of what the audience told us. There were two different outreach for the business, but also for the community. There's a long-standing tradition of gospel and R&B and hip hop in the region. Mainly, I would say, based originally through Oakwood University, which is a historical African-American university in Huntsville. Obviously, the connection with Muscle Shoals, and if you have respect recorded down the road, that certainly brings lots of different types of genres. But we were blown away by the diversity of any major city, right? There's plenty of EDM and dance music in Huntsville. There's also plenty of country music and Southern rock. And you're right, Celeste, we came across less jazz, but quite a lot of blues, I guess, through the gospel. And for those kind of from a historical thing, one of the things I discovered was a troupe or an act. I don't even know what you'd refer to them as, Mayor, but the Aeolians, right? That's incredible historic African-American band that's been around for a long, long time. That's based in Huntsville, and then I didn't just, and Little Richard's now buried in Huntsville because that's where he's from. Yeah. So it's like there's a long history of incredible kind of African-American music going back, generations.
And that was the interesting thing that, when Shain was bringing that out, we have the Aeolians, who are a world champion university choir sitting here, which is a Seventh-day Adventist school, which is a predominantly black school. but they are a world champion choir, and out of them has come Take Six and some other groups who are a cappella groups, which are very they have a very narrow band in there, but there is a big crowd who really enjoys listening to them and listening to their music. Every year we have Jazz in the Parks, and except for this year, but Jazz in the Parks is on Sunday nights through August usually for 4 or 5 Sunday nights in August. And we'll have 300-400 people show up in the park, bringing their chairs and picnic lunches and everything else to listen to music. Monday nights during the summertime, we have concerts in the parks, and we have different genres come out, and different bands come out and play, and different type of music shown up from everything from classical to rock and roll to all types of music that people just 500, 600, 700 people, 1,000 people show up and bring out the chairs. So it's a community activity in getting people involved. We had all the evidence and precursors that we had a big interest in the music scene. Shain's study kind of came through and validated that. And when he validated it, the easiest way to validate it was the first just open meeting that we had with 600 people there. That showed that you had a lot of interest in music in this community.
To give you two things that I love about Huntsville, they're completely different. One is Huntsville has a Women in Jazz and Blues Festival that's been going for 7 or 8 years. And it also has an incredible hip hop tech conference. So, it's the same thing. To me, that's the thing. I was blown away by the offer because, again, I was an arrogant Londoner who came to Huntsville thinking, in London, I can get everything that I want anytime that I want it, if I wanted it. And then I come to a place like Huntsville and I realize that I can get anything that I want, but it's just so much easier to get it.
Sure.
So that was the thing.
Cool. I want to talk, of course, too, about the replicability of this. What Huntsville is doing, how easy, before and given the context of current circumstances, would it be easy to do in other sort of mid-size areas, similarly sized areas?
I call us a mid-tier size city, and that's mid-size is about where we are. We're about 112th largest city in the U.S. So that puts us in the mid-tier area. I think that you've got to have the community interest out there, and you've got to have the precursors that show that there is that community interest. And there's a lot of communities. I can just think of those within a couple of 100 miles around us that have an event, and then that's the one event that they have during the year. They have 2 events or 5 events. If I look across the board, we probably have a couple of 100 events throughout the year, and maybe up to 300 events per year that exercise every type of genre out there. Every night you can go into one of the local music emporiums, and you can hear someone who is playing, singing, whatever, or performing with us with either jazz, saxophone, or whatever, in every type. And then you also have the symphony and the classicals, and when you put all that together, it shows that there's an underlying interest in your community that covers a broad base area. And I think that's kind of the key to it. The mid-tier cities that have 1 or 2 events and just have one area that they work in may not need to go to a music commission, but an area that has a very broad and very diverse area that they will that is very popular in your community, you need to have a music commission that can pull all of it together, pull it all together. You may not ever want to go to the symphony, but you want to know there's a symphony there, and you want to know when they're performing. And if somebody else who you're talking to, who says, I like symphony, you can tell them about it. And so you have to have the underlying interest in there. And I mean, we have so many people, and it's probably the way it is in a lot of other cities. You have so many people who work their daytime jobs so that they can exercise their passion at night, and their passion is music. And so they're looking for outlets to be able to perform, outlets to be able to be part of the scene, outlets to be able to be a professional in the scene.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest thing that we do this in about 20 cities in the US. Huntsville is the first city that we worked in, and we're furthest along in terms of, and also it's just been easier in Huntsville because of the community mindset. But it does come to mindset. Mindset's the hardest thing to change. And the two things that we come against in cities when we, especially now, one is not recognizing music as an economy. So I think in the music industry, we see ourselves as an economy because we are an economy, but a lot of people, there is a traditional form of workforce development, which is about building factories and making stuff. And intellectual property and the knowledge economy is still not as prevalent in a lot of cities. And that's not just the US, that's in lots of places around the world. That's one. So you have to have this will to take music deliberately and intentionally and invest in it. So you have to invest in the community, you have to invest in infrastructure. The amphitheater in Huntsville is a great example of that. It's going to be a world-class facility that is being designed and is going to be operated very differently than most amphitheaters in the US. It's being done independently and designed by artists, essentially. And I think that's so a lot of, and now especially when there's so many competing factors, and I get that a lot of cities have really strained budgets and you're picking what to focus on. If we look at recovery and we look at really focusing on the knowledge economy, then music and culture is the way to recover. That's, to me, music and culture is the simplest way. It's the way that reaches the most people in an equitable way, because music is all things to all people. But I'm preaching to the choir here, and most of my day I have to speak to less enlightened public officials than Mayor Battle is the best way to put it, and try to turn them into Mayor Battles. And we think that this is just the beginning, you know. But the more non-music people that invest in music, the better it will be for music. That's kind of how we see it. And everyone uses music, so everyone should be recognizing its value and investing in it, like Huntsville.
And I think one of the things you just said is kind of spot on. When we start talking about coming out of COVID-19, we tried to come out when we were doing good in the early days, and we couldn't, and then it came back on with a vengeance. But there's a lot of people out there who are scared to come out to the restaurants. They're scared to come out to the venues. They're scared to come out and listen to music. There is nothing better to pull people together than pulling people together through their passion of music, whether it is a symphony or whether it is jazz or whether it is the Aeolians, and come together and listen to music. We've got to find a way to get people to quit being so scared to come out and scared to be to be around other people. There's a lot of people who we're seeing, and I think we're seeing across the country, who have just decided they're going to quarantine themselves until there's a vaccine out there, and it might be 2 years that they're still in their house and getting moldy in their house. But the interesting thing is that we've got to get people out, and we've got to get them impassioned into doing something. And music gives them one of those things that we can get them impassioned to do, and get them used to coming out a little bit, coming out of their house, out of that quarantine, being part of society, being part of a community again. You need to do it safely. There's some safety tips to it, but if they do, then music leads us out of some dire straits that we have been in, and gets rid of a lot of the fears that everybody's going to have about coming out and being part of a community again.
Got it. Got it. That's a good point. Is that if music is, like you said, all things to all people, it's an effective way to get people out of their houses because there's really something for everyone in it. In terms of proximity to Nashville, what kind of challenges, if any, does that create? Do you have to contend with radius clauses? Do you have to contend with artists going there instead of Huntsville? Like, how do you sort of exist next to that sort of major musically famous city?
I think Shain, you talk that because I think
the
you
radius
addressed part of
question, but you, yeah, you know, the radius is far bigger than Huntsville. Is the best way to put it. In some, you know, especially for larger acts,
Sure.
it can stretch to Birmingham, Alabama, which is 2 hours down the road, or even Memphis. I think that the idea that we had, especially with the amphitheater, and I'm less involved in the amphitheater now, but the reason why we really believe that an 8,500 capacity amphitheater in Huntsville is the right decision is because there's a market in Huntsville to satisfy that. Whereas a lot of people in Huntsville were going to Nashville to the Ascend to go to gigs because there is no venue of its kind. And we also believe that on the flip side, if we provide a better product, then they'll come to us. And so it's not so much about competing. I love Nashville, and you know, I've worked there and have lots of friends there, but it's about offering something different. And the difference, one is affordability, simple dollars and cents. Huntsville makes sense. There's jobs, it's cheaper to live, the quality of life is just as good, potentially even better. But in terms of the music offer, it's all part of this continual process because it's not going to change overnight. But if we can build a world-class amphitheater that's built in the mindset of Red Rocks and the Greek, you know, not built in the mindset of a shed that's open 20 days a year and run by a multinational company. If we can unite the community around music to present a stronger message, then it doesn't matter that Nashville is an hour and a half away because Huntsville will have its own identity. And it takes time, right? You know, Nashville's been trademarked a music city for like 70 years. So,
yeah. And I'd say also it's some accessibility. Some of the accessibility. You go to Nashville now, and because of the growth that they've had, because of the number of people that have moved there, you know, anytime after 2 in the afternoon, you're sitting in traffic for hours trying to get into the center core of the city. You know, in our accessibility, we've got 1.2 million people, 16 county area across North Alabama. Within an hour drive time, we've got, you know, we're probably hitting 2.5 million people. And when you start looking at those numbers and you're trying to fill up 8,500 seats, you can do that on a regular basis, and you can get in, you can get out, you can get back home if you need to. I think that's a lot of the accessibility is going to be a key because we haven't overshot our infrastructure like I would say Nashville has, Austin, Texas has, and some of the other areas.
Got it. Okay. And Shain, you mentioned musical identity, and this question is for all three of you. What's your sort of catchphrase for the musical identity of Huntsville?
Come on, Celeste.
Answer that.
You know, we're still working on that. There's been a lot of things we've had to figure out as we've started this, and I think that's something that I need to go to the board and we need to talk about a little bit. We've been so focused on developing the groundwork of systems and communication and policies and stuff. Yeah. That's a good question, Katie.
All right. Well,
we talk a lot about Huntsville, the sky not being the limit. The sky's not the limit because we're into rockets. So we're into going, you know, beyond this Earth's atmosphere and going into deep space, going to the moon, going to Mars, coming back. You know, and portions of it is music. The sky is not the limit too. When we start talking about music, we're talking about music that's done all over the world, all in this universe. And I think we're talking about all types of music. So there's no limit as to what we can have that makes our community move forward and grow through the use of music.
Yeah, Judy just said, Judy is on the board as well, one of the viewers. Huntsville's a hidden treasure for music. I think as an outsider, it's not. And I'm a policy nerd, so I see it a little bit differently. But I base it on quality, accountability, and professionalism. Everything in Huntsville is good. Everything in Huntsville is of a certain quality. The way the city is run, the way people work with each other. No place is perfect. Every city has its challenges, but there is a level of I don't know, quality and professionalism that, again, I wish existed in every city that we work in, but doesn't. And I think that will translate into the music, whether it's more studios. I know of a couple studios. A new one has been built since we started the work, and I think a couple more are being talked about right now. More producers, more songwriters, especially things where you can work at home and produce. Taylor Swift's album proves that you can make incredible music, in isolation, with the right talent.
Sure. I would love to end with some anecdotes, a particular performance, concert moment, musical moment that each of you has experienced within this initiative that you thought, okay, this is working.
I definitely have one. So in one of the key partners of this initiative, actually the reason how we got involved is a property developer that are redeveloping a part of Huntsville that was a shopping mall in the 80s and 90s, I believe, that got torn down, and it's being redeveloped into a whole new town center with homes and schools, and the amphitheater is going to be there, and there's a climbing gym, I know that, and there's a little mini pop-up venue in the development as the development is being built. It's called the Camp, and it's we would call it a meanwhile space in the UK, but like a temporary pop-up space. And there was a kind of local tribute night that I went to with some Muscle Shoals people and some Huntsville people, and I don't remember what they played, but I was just, one of those moments where you're just in awe at the talent on stage. And I think everyone on stage lived within a 5 or 10 minute drive of the Camp. And it was a good night. It was warm. I had free beer, surrounded by nice people. So, and I think that must have been the night where we launched the study. So I think we were all pretty happy. I think that was the night we launched the study. So.
Good one.
It's interesting. We do a state of the city every year, and it's an hour-long presentation to most of your business class in the community, and you highlight the things that you've done the past year and things that you're going to be doing in the future. And one of the things we highlighted was the music study, and talking about music in our community and how big a music community it was. We had a young lady, Victoria Jones, sing for us, and Victoria will one day be, you'll see her name in the lights, in the bright lights one day. But it just so happened that Victoria Jones was also a kindergarten student, and Mrs. Battle, my wife, taught her in kindergarten, and she's now young 20s. And just a super local star, and someday she'll be a national star. But just seeing that kind of development of a young person who had started off as knowing her from the kindergarten days all the way up to what she's developed into today, it's something special to you because it tells you what this can mean to our whole community.
And for me, I think the moment that really hit me is there's a She Writes event that's all for women songwriters. And kind of as a precursor to that, there was a Women in Music night. And I went to this Women in Music night, and the only performers were women and girls. There was a showing some girls that are in the Huntsville drumline. Only the girls came and performed, and it was fantastic. And to see a whole night of just women, and knowing that there's a whole extra section of men also that perform, and there were all these varieties of music, and it just really struck me that night how much support is here, and how with the city and the musicians working together, there's so many possibilities that can be done here, and we need each other, and we could make a lot happen with that. So that night, just sitting there watching, from those little girls playing the drums and the cymbals and dancing, all the way up to the adult women who are performing the songs that they wrote, it was a really powerful night for me.
Those are all wonderful, perfect anecdotes, and I think really illustrate what it is you guys are doing down there. Thank you. This has been really illuminating. Is there anything that we have not discussed that anyone would like to add? We have a few more minutes.
If anyone is interested, everything that we have done genuinely is on a website, is on Huntsville City's website. There's a whole page dedicated to the music audit, including press clippings when I've been grilled, minutes from the meetings that we had when we were doing it. So we're trying to tell the story of the process as well, right? Because the process is just as important. And the full report is available because it's a publicly funded document. Everything was done in front of the public. So the 260 pages or whatever it is, if someone wants to read it, it's available. Or there's a 15-page executive summary, which is a little bit more palatable.
Terrific. Terrific. Well, everyone knows where to go find that. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. This has, like I said, been really illuminating and really inspiring. So thank you, everyone, as well, who logged on to watch, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.